Rolfricker here reporting for Gen Con 2018. And as of course, Fantasy Flight made some wild new announcements, one of which is very interesting in the new card game, KeyForge. This is a new card game where everything is random. Each deck that you will buy is unique and unique to you alone.
They're actually calling it a unique deck game. So not a collectible card game, not a living card game, a whole new format, according to them.
The way this works is I believe there's something like over 300 cards, but when you buy a deck, it'll have a unique back with a unique name because you're supposedly playing as Archon, so you'll be playing as like Spittleforge, the Archon of Stealth. They have very weird names. And then a unique back drawing for the Archon as well, something computer generated.
And a unique as you said, the titles as well.
Yes. And the deck list is unique as well. It'll have used from 3 different out of 7 different groups. You use 3. And it'll pull cards from that, and it'll make it in a way that makes sense. For example, I had a card that said, pull Time Travelers cards from your deck, and I had cards named Time Travelers in my deck. It won't make it so it's useless.
Right. So, but every deck is going to be, to some extent, randomly generated, and no 2 decks are going to be the same. No matter how many you buy, they're going to share cards, they're going to share factions, but there will be at least one, if not many, differences between them.
Yeah, and you can actually then use an app, they said, so you can actually look and see, what decks people have one with and what cards are strong.
Yeah, some kind of tracking mechanism.
Some cards are stronger. They still have a common, uncommon, and rare, and they have this actually handicap mechanism where like you draw less if you use them, that we sort of found out near the end. Mm-hmm. But the point of the game is you want to build these 3 keys to a vault. I guess it's Borderlands.
You want to forge them.
And you do that by gathering amber, and you either play your own cards that gather amber or steal it from your opponent in some weird ways.
Yeah, which I found that very interesting because the goal of the game isn't just to kill each other's dudes, but to sometimes that will help you directly or indirectly. Usually it will. You don't want your opponent to have dudes generally, but that's not the end goal. It's just sort of a step along the way.
Yeah, and part of that is what could happen sometimes. The way the game works is you don't spend, there's no mana like lands for Magic.
Yeah.
What you do is you name a faction and you can only really use cards from that faction. So even if I had a lot of Mars cards, which is one of the factions, for example, if I wanted to play cards from the Sanctum, there we go, set, I can't use the Mars card. So even if I had a strong field, I might not be attacking you with those cards this turn.
Yeah, and like you might draw a hand one turn where you draw up to 6 normally, so you'd be like, oh, I have 5 Mars cards, so I could really go all in with those. Or you might have, like I had sometimes, 2 of 3 different factions, so I was like, oh, there's not like any that I can really, I have to be more strategic with how I play them.
Yeah, in addition, there's actually, each set does, at least from what I can tell, I had a feeling like this one does more of this and that. And definitely Mars does this one more, but there's something called the Archive. It's sort of like a special out-of-play zone where cards can get put in there. And then if I call the Mars set, for example, again, and I have a bunch of Mars cards in there, I can choose to add those to my hand and then also have this huge turn.
Yeah, so you can kind of bank stuff for the future to really build, and like you said, just pull off some crazy combos. Everything comes into play exhausted, and then you have to unexhaust it later, so there's a little bit of that.
Yeah, that's the other weird thing for me, like unexhausting happening at the end of your turn.
Right.
So like I'm used to it at the beginning, so I'm like, oh wait, my stuff's up now.
Yeah, so let's talk about the game itself before getting into the what we think about the actual deck part. As a 2-player dual game, we only did a demo, so we haven't had a ton of experience, but what did you think about the basic mechanics and the way it played?
I thought it was interesting. It was definitely different, which is in a good way, because it's not like, oh, I'm just killing you in a different way. This is literally, like, I actually had to think.
It definitely felt...
I had to move my mind a little bit
like
around.
Not to knock the Transformers CCG that we also played, but whereas that was like, okay, yeah, it's a CCG, I'm kind of familiar with this. This one felt a lot more experimental, I think, in a lot of ways. The colors and the art were really weird and cool.
Yeah, it reminded me a lot like Hearthstone. That's sort of almost silliest, but still had a serious tone in some things.
The color scheme is definitely reminiscent of Hearthstone for sure. By the way, this is designed by Richard Garfield, who also made Magic, among many other games.
He actually, it's really funny, test rulebook that was there, I don't know if this will be in the real one, had a little blurb from him, and he was talking about how like he missed when people just bought pre-made deck and just went into a tournament. He doesn't like how people just throw away cards and only use the best ones, so he wants you to force you to use the good ones.
Right.
As it ends in, he compares it to going to an amusement park when someone tells you the rides to go versus a jungle where you just got to use what you got, and welcome to the jungle.
Yeah, which is kind of like, I don't know, like the guy who invented hamburgers saying like, hey, why don't you guys try tacos?
Yeah,
like,
and
he's kind of disowning his own creation in a way, which is kind of funny.
And I think that's where I'm worried about this for me.
Let's hear it.
Because in essence, what this is if you buy a deck, since no one else can get it, if I see a deck I would prefer to play, it's tough luck for me. And that could really stink. Because this is completely random. I don't know what deck I'm buying with. So to me, this reminds me even more so to a loot box than a pack of cards. Because with a pack of cards, because you can either sell them or trade them and build them, you still get some value out of it. You could open this and just be dud. And for me, I'm a little bit worried about how strong each deck is. Because sure, you can play a deck, but is it good? I don't know. Well, like I'll have to see when more decks are open, more people are playing this and stuff. Like only a few people got these, and there's the demo table, so we haven't really got to see this really get hammered out by the core card game audience.
Right, it'll be a little while before that happens. Here's what I'll say that may make you feel better or not, is just that I think for this game, they're upfront about what it is, how it works, how it's distributed. The mindset of I gotta get the best thing and make the best deck. It doesn't exist in this game. So I think that if you're looking for that, you're not gonna find it. But
right. No, and I'll admit that's also a little bit nice considering how sometimes you see a card that's you want and it's worth $50. You're like, but it's more of just annoying sometimes if you opened it and you're like, I prefer a control deck, and it's not control at all.
Yeah, if it's not clear to people, like you cannot customize at all, even if you want to.
Each back is unique with the Archon stuff, so you literally can't swap them.
Yes, you could sleeve, but
if you go to a tournament, you're going to tell you're lying.
They're not going to allow that. Yeah, I mean, it is definitely weird, I'm wondering how well they're going to work that out, but I do love the idea of just being like, you know what, I don't know how much a deck's going to be either. Like if it's $10, that's one thing versus 15 or 20. But
right, pricing will also matter.
But going to your game store and just being like, let's just each buy a deck and just see what happens. Like that's fun. That's kind of a fun idea.
No, I do think that's a cool idea, especially for tournament scenes. Like if you just go to Gen Con, you don't need to bring or prep something. You can just you buy a thing there, which I will admit is very nice, because sometimes with some games it's almost annoying when it says, for example, a game says for an hour. I think if some of the card games are like, no, that's an hour to play, but then like it's 2 hours of me making the decks for everyone to use.
Yes, none of that. And
so it has its pros and cons, but I think we need to really see it hit the hands of like mass market to really see how it does feel. It does feel more like the draft, where you don't really you just send out the packs, but you literally go into the game instead of skipping even that part.
And props to Fantasy Flight for not just saying we need another LCG or let's try this is or CCG like a Destiny. This is totally different.
I'm also really excited that it's a new universe,
a new property, and not based on
this could have been Cosmic Encounter. This could have been
Terranoth, what have you. Yeah, and this was definitely they lost Netrunner, which was also a Richard Garfield based design, and now they're getting a new one. So it kind of feels this is interesting. For all we know, this could be like a flop that never comes back. I honestly don't know, but it could be huge. We'll see. Definitely, the gameplay was fun. It was definitely different and interesting and unique.
Yeah, they went with a unique game plan, unique distribution style. We'll just have to see whether that is able to sort of stand on its own, or whether maybe people sort of get tired because they can't customize it at all. We'll definitely see. I think it does. It could have a place.
Yeah. Who will it attract?
Will it last? Is the question.
We have two questions. Yeah. Like and subscribe for more Gen Con 2018 coverage.
And enter our contest for a chance to win some Gen Con games in the description down below.